Chapter 4. Sleep. Noon came and went. The knot rock wobbled. They tossed a few rocks down the hill, and sang a song to wake the fish, but still no signs of this kind shepherd. The colors of dusk bloomed so many shades of beautiful she'd never known to appreciate. Glowing moss rock, red mountains, sparkling brooks, and slow, deliberate shapes plodding through bronze trees. Evren saw it too. He'd begun using her to stand. Too large to be caribou or bear. Woolly bick mammoth, perhaps? It moved like nothing on four legs should. Gliding without lumber nor gait, it made no sound and brushed like a breeze over thickets and stones. Then with Evron she stood. The creature's shell took shape in the golden curtains of Uyu's waning crescent, its carapace smooth and gray, blurring at its fronds into the surrounding landscape. Then it vanished from sight. "A trick of the sight," she said to the boy clutching her hip. "Close your eyes." She said, "Hurry." Evren did as he was told, still agape and clutched at her belt. "Whoa, why?" "It's time," Reyth said in a hushed voice. There she saw it again, where husky cattails bent against the body of something ethereal. Had she not caught the shape as it moved incongruous against the light, she'd never known it was there. A shepherd had come at last. "Hello." Reyth waved at it. Did it have a name? Could it understand her? She called for it again, feeling silly, but it was all she could think to do. The two red wisps remained aflame, aloft and still. The longer it kept on, the more uneasy she became. "I promise I will give you what you ask." "Rey?" Evren said, but she pulled his face against her leg, reminding him of his task. "Do not look, my brother. Do not be afraid." Then, like awe, two wisps of red light struck her, hanging aloft above the reeds. Brighter than falling Uyu, the red gaze blazed upon her and all that she was. The red eyes of omens bid her be brave. Yet as she defied these gorgeous bright eyes, she could not bring herself to look down to see if Evren had kept his own tightly shut. Like a deer, she'd frozen transfixed, as fear struck her still. Scylla said not to dread Red. Remember what Scylla said. "Reyth!" Her attention shattered. Night had fallen. Was someone— "Rey!" The scream echoed from the cave's depth, carried upon the ring of its song. Evron! His name jolted through her. He'd been ripped from her grasp. Blood smeared the hill's face, from her boots to the maw. Slipping on the wet, she sprung towards the mouth, waiting to consume her. The rampant wailing of a boy grew louder and louder until it reached a plateau before she reached the cave. A black hulk of chitin-scaled and emerald wings blurred into her path. The shepherd, twice as tall as she and punctured by 6, long limbs like cricket's legs curled over the threshold like a spider upon prey. Its two large eyes as big as melons, red as the blood drops upon the stone and bright as starlight. "Evren!" she shouted and grabbed for the bedazzling being's black mandibles, gulping with mucus. "You bastard! Get out me fucking way!" The echo of her brother's cries faded. A long leg, that arched high above the shepherd's segmented body, from which sopping wet tentacles spilled, brushed her back with the force and grace of a firm river. Snarling, she rushed it again, only to be brushed aside again. "Let me forward," she demanded, screamed, then sprinted towards the impenetrable darkness. Even with the sun at her back, its depths escaped perception. This time, when the shepherd poised to block her, Reyth's hatchet popped its fat eye like a tomato. Sweet orange bile spewed over her. The shepherd made no sound as it thrashed aside in pain. God or not, she'd brought its jeweled wings buzzing and beating louder than the shrieks of the agonized. She couldn't believe she'd done that. But what had it done to Evren? One hand against the smooth cavern wall, she fixed herself against the blackness below. With her hatchet feeling forward, she plunged into the night. The walls rang, the wings beat. The further she delved, the louder a dripping grew. A disgusting warmth seeped in through the soles of her boots as meat squelched underfoot. She recoiled, revolted, and knelt to feel. Reyth gripped a thick, knotted rope, meaty and dripping with foulness and painting the air with copper and shit. She'd skinned and dressed enough game herself to know the taste and heft of entrails. She let it slip from her hand and it splashed. Nausea racked her over, and she bit her tongue to keep from vomiting. How could it be so dark? Tears wrung out her eyes and down her cheeks. But she had to find Evren. She had to find him. She couldn't leave him alone. Not now. Her hand found the wall again. This time she felt a roughness she'd missed before, an unevenness like pustules and pox, imperfections upon the mineral moss. Drip, drip, drip. Water fell across a pinprick of light ahead. Like the shepherd's own, it bid her still, and although she was again afraid, it felt this time familiar, warm and welcoming. 1 step, 2, 3. The point grew and she stumbled over something soft and heavy. A body. The single light split into 3, then 3 into 6, then 6 into 12. She'd no more breath with which to scream as she was flung again into darkness, pulled by long, thick branches curled around her waist back the way she came. She searched frantic for a grip against the floor, her nails ripping on rock and stone. Her direction gone as she fell backwards, pulled and pulled away from a never-recessing yellow seared upon the portrait of the abyss. Gasping for air, she tumbled, flung, into the biting coldness of snow. Crisp sangar, clear sky, and breathless lands a smear penetrated by knife pricks of yellow lanced into her sight. She threw snow into her eyes, but shapes melted into wax against those 12 yearning flames, and before blindness took her completely, from the sightless cavern emerged a tangle of monsters, ripping from one another plates of jet carapace and severing limbs in a scything fiasco, wherein amid cadaverific spasms the shepherd coalesced upon its broken back. The next victim of the cave dweller, sizzling and crackling as spears of arc light pinned it to the cliffside. Sight or no sight, she found her footing and knew her way. Reyth fell, hit humus and grass. Reyth rose and tackled a thin tree. Wrapping herself around it, banging knees and slipping in mud, she became dizzy. Hands grabbed and heaved her hoe. Without vision to guide her, Jor's voice clapped upon her ears. "P, damn it, what is wrong?" She shook her head, nonsensical sounds fumbling past her lips. "Calm down. Take a deep breath. I can't understand ya." He cupped her shivering shoulders. "Breathe, P. Breathe." "Pap?" Her voice wept. She couldn't believe it. I... She gave in to her sobs, mouthing, "Evil, evil, evil." And though she heard her father's respite, her thoughts reformed upon the all but faint glow of distant eyes burned into her world. It looked as though she dwelled within the cavern still, but in Jor's coat she smelled the brine of home. "Wait here," he said, and she felt herself being let free. She panicked, sputtering, hysterical, and pulling upon his clothes, knowing full well his and her life depended upon her flailing tongue. "No, no." "P, let go, you... He's dead, Pap, dead. We need to run. Please, please, please." Reyth pushed against him with all her might, but he held firm like an oak in her path while letting her go with his arms. "Pap!" she screamed. "We must run." "Me boy," Jor uttered, and he gave way, letting her fall into frost. "Your eyes, Pap, do not look. Close your eyes. We must run and not look back." She reached for him, finding twigs and sticks, reeds and thorns, but not Jor. It'd come and kill as silently as the gliding shepherd, rip and tear and tinsel its spiny body with their guts. There it was, ever in sight, yet her father had yet to move. The yellow. "Pap, please, listen. Evra is dead. I killed him." She pushed at her eye, trying to rub away the light and finding tears and mud, and like the screams of the dying there was no washing it from her senses. Please, Pap, we's gonna die." And even though she couldn't see it, she knew indecision tore at him. He tucked his hand under her arm and jerked her onwards. "Crawl, P. Crawl forward and go careful, but quick. I'll catch you if you fall." "I cannot see Pap," she said. I cannot. "There is no time to argue with me," Jor shouted, and his firm footfall struck slush. "Listen to ya, Papa. I'll be right behind ya." Her thoughts fell apart as she tried to jam the pieces together. Reyth crawled like an animal over bramble and murk as her father's sudden movements took his presence further and further away. She started to turn and chase, but caught herself as she realized she'd lose the path away he'd set her on. Fight or flight. She'd frozen. Her father beyond arm's length, she squealed and ripped hair to tear away the burning memory of Evran gasping and Yor snarling, a shadow fleeting in righteous suicide. By sound alone she sought her way. The breath had tricks, but so did she. So she listened to the sounds of Sangar, beyond the immediacy of her breaths and the silence at her back where death lurked. Rocks under palms, boots against forever greens, she sloshed through a creek towards an unknown shore. Water filled her mouth, then mud as she found the embankment with her face. Like a weasel she scarpered. Her everything lurched when a sudden fall threw her. Thrashing free of a tangle, she found her flight again. Torn skin and battered bones, she come upon dense wood, nettles snagged and bark bit. No longer did silence brood behind her, now a babbling brook and the titter of insects. Uyu had fallen from the sky. She could name the night owl's every song, and heard the distant roar of Lady Turnus. Again she knew where every piece fell, coalescence at last. But she could not stop, because where could it be? Then moans of giants among the clouds foretold rain upon the wind. Time had come at last, wherein she was sure that if she'd been found she'd be dead. Shelter soon, she knew, but first, she'd given them both to the monsters. Then finding a soft patch unto which to rest, she felt her wounds and wondered why. Why had she not crawled back the other way? Because she was a coward and a fool. To the wind I cast my song, so the ice may sing along. Hear our sleeping song, hear our sleeping song. I dream of thaw and ever fish. To Tyrnus I cast my wish. Do not weep for fish, do not weep for fish. Spring comes soon, this you'll see. You are safest without me. Go on sleep and see the shepherds are watching me.